renewed in days of old. Yasher Koach, Joe Fuchs, thank you again for being our Baal Koreh. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Not too untypically, I'll begin my words on a given Friday night or Shabbat morning saying it's good to be together, that we've survived another week and we are alive and we're celebrating together. And I used to say that during times which were considered to be more normal, believing the need to articulate that so that we can understand that there's some basic things that we have to be grateful for, things that we can take, that we have to take note of and to give thanks for. These words become more significant, obviously, during times of distress and disease and unrest. I know the recent past has created within me a fire, as it were, to speak about what was happening in our country as a function or in relation to the values of our tradition and the values of our people. Like so many of you, I've seen those very values, truth, freedom, justice, threatened. And also, I knew and you know that our place as a very small minority and a non-Christian minority in this world was also feeling threatened. Today, I want to speak about something a little bit different, and I think it's something that is a challenge that each and every one of us face. But we'll face it only if we are fortunate to live long lives. I'd like to speak a little bit about the challenge of aging, and you're going to hear why I want to speak about it this morning. I want to speak a little bit about some perceptions that I have, my own perceptions that come from living in this community, which is considered to be, by the way, the epicenter of Jewish aging in the world. Delray and Boca, it's been described as such by demographers. But my perceptions they come from watching so many of you, but also from witnessing my grandmother and my parents as they aged. We witness the force and the power of aging. Sometimes we try to run from it, but we're all witnesses to it. So I chose to speak about it this morning because I really received quite a shock when I was listening to a commentator on television mention that we're wasting precious vaccines on the elderly. He said most are not very productive anyway, and many will die soon, within a year, 2 years, 5 years, who knows. It was as if their lives really didn't matter so much. It was a statement of an ethical position or the lack of one that's totally contrary to the ethics and the morality of Judaism. It very much upset me. Contrary, as I said, to the essence of who we are as a people. And that statement stayed with me the last few days after I heard it. First of all, in truth, there's going to be enough for everyone to be vaccinated. His statement, however, was a statement of value in terms of choosing one life over another. And that's a very, very complicated ethical issue, and one that we have studied in some classes and will continue to. But then I read the Parsha and I received some direction, as it were. And the direction indicated that it really should be addressed because it spoke to us in our Parsha. I wondered why someone would make the statement that the lives of elderly are worth less. Perhaps it's in part because many lives are darkened by the shadow of aging. And too often we see people mock the old. Too often we see people laugh at physical conditions or joking about slowness and mobility. Toby always has a very good reminder for me. She always says, don't mock that which we are to become. But with aging, there also comes a fear of losing competency or a state of being in boredom. Many people buy that. So they fight aging with silly styles or with surgeries because people want to stay young forever. Staying young forever is impossible, but it's a difficult reality to accept. Or perhaps there is the fear of irrelevancy, and that's pretty profound. When we lose even slightly some hearing or vision or the capacity to move quickly, we know that it can simply be very difficult to keep up. And so unless we're paid attention, we can feel like we are outsiders and not quite as important. People have consistently reminded me when I've spoken about time spent with grandchildren to enjoy it now, they say, because soon they won't be so interested in you. They will have more exciting friends and other interests. But perhaps also there's a fear of aging that's connected to the fear of death. That's both understandable, but it is also inevitable. We share that. We share that with everyone who's living and all who ever lived. The reality of death, which we share, is that we don't know when it's going to come. It's not just a function of aging. It's a part of the randomness of this world. Accidents, evil, bad decisions. No, death is not limited to the aged either. And so it's not just a function of how long one has to live, because in truth, nobody knows. Our tradition teaches that there are ways that we ward off death, and certainly it's not physically, but those ways do not lie in distractions or superficiality of fashions or surgery or getting sports cars that might make a guy feel young or having an affair. No, not at all. We're taught that we ward off death, that we can prevent its encroachment into the realm of our life only when we live each day and every day, knowing that we have something to contribute, trying to do something meaningful. We have to refuse to see the elderly as being walking towards death or to view aging as equivalent to dying. It's not. Truth be told, from the moment we're born, we're on a journey, and the destination of that journey is death. But to make it meaningful and give it value, each step while we're on the journey has to attempt to bring meaning and to bring understanding, to show love and kindness, to be compassionate and to be responsible. I'm reminded of this every time that I recite the Amidah and I say the names of Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, because the repetition of those names tell me that even though they are no longer with us, their lives continue to have impact upon us. Their memories continue to live within us. And that's true with our own loved ones. And each of us is given that opportunity by living lives of meaning and value, living lives of kindness and love. Love, by the way, never dies. We touch a community, we touch our friends, and we touch our family. My concern is the value that we place on the aged and the elderly. It's certainly, we have seen great changes in our own lifetime in terms of what we do with the elderly. The prevalence of parents, grandparents living in our apartments or in our home just a generation ago has been replaced by institutions with only older people. There are many spiritual communities that we know of whereby the elders are in fact revered. There's a sense that in spite of lost abilities, the very fact of their longevity and the spirit within them is to be valued. The experiences that they have witnessed and that they can retell, we all benefit from them. And so there are many cultures and there have been religious traditions where they are truly revered and respected. We owe the elderly gratitude for being conduits to the past. And as such, they continue to share their wisdom. Think about that. If the elderly felt that from the young, the realization that they are truly valued by the young, perhaps the need to stay unnaturally young would begin to disappear. If we show proper reverence, then being an elder becomes a status that is to be cherished, and it should be. In the Torah, it states, "You shall rise before the aged, and you should show deference to the old. You shall fear your God. I am the Lord. Mipnei seva takum." You rise before the aged. And the verse has a parallelism in it. You rise before the aged, and you fear your God. What's that about? First of all, obviously, it's a realization of Tselem Elohim, which exists in every person. But it may be also the realization of the wisdom that can be found in the elderly. In this week's portion, Moses and his brother Aaron received God's command to appear before Pharaoh to demand freedom for the Hebrew slaves. In what looks like an unnecessary digression, and at the same time is what motivated me to speak about this after hearing that fellow on television, after discussing the conversation between the brothers and God, the brothers and Pharaoh, the Torah records that Moses was 80 years old and Aaron was 83 years old when they made their demand on Pharaoh. Why? Why does the Torah go out of its way to tell us just how old they were? It's so rare that the Torah interrupts the text to give the ages of the actors. This morning, as I was drinking my coffee and reading the New York Times, there was an op-ed piece by Peter Steinhardt, the journalist. Steinhardt spoke about the fact that maybe we should work a lot harder to have more elderly people elected to be leaders in this country. Why? Because they cannot then take a lifetime to assume more and more power and to feed their egos in a greater way, but rather to use the wisdom of the elderly and allow that wisdom to help lead us. The other night I watched a basketball game when the announcer said in surprise, "Can you believe what you just saw? He's 34 years old." Like that was old. And I think all of the football fans amongst us are looking forward to the match between the elderly Tom Brady and Drew Brees, both of whom are only in their 40s. You see, aging really is about perspective, and it's about what we do. Life is not professional sports, and our worth must be measured by qualities that are more profound than physical attributes. So we learn that Moses was 80 and Aaron was 83. Why does the Torah stop from the drama of statesmanship and diplomacy at the highest level to reveal something so mundane, so irrelevant as the age of these two men? According to Ibn Ezra, this reference to advanced age is unique. We don't find prophets anywhere in Scripture for whom the text points out that they prophesied while elderly, except here. Only for Moshe and Aaron does the Torah go out of its way. Ibn Ezra noticed a distinction in the functions of these brothers and all subsequent Jewish prophets. Only Moshe and Aaron transmitted new teachings to the people. The prophets reminded us of the old teachings and the values and living those values. But Moshe and Aaron gave us new teachings. Ibn Ezra says the statement of Moses and Aaron's age is highly complimentary. They don't hide their age. The age becomes a source of pride. In the words of the Gemara, 80 is the age of strength. Why does it say it? What's the strength of 80 years old? A teenager is stronger. A child can run faster and farther and packs more energy. The acumen of a 40-year-old is quicker and more deft. And a 60-year-old is more keen to the ways of the world. Or is he? The strength of the elderly is the wisdom that comes from experience and the wisdom that comes from completion. Having run much of the course of life, having seen the silly attempts for some imagined success in the passion of the human heart rise and then subside in the individual, having seen their own and their friends' dreams, limitations, and achievements, an elder is able to look at the human condition with compassion and understanding and some skepticism from proper perspective. Perhaps less fear than others feel. When we're old, we no longer either to serve our passions or our ambitions, but rather we can teach about acceptance. When we're old, we can review our life, taking stock of how those who cared for us as children paved our paths through life. Age brings perspective. In our youth, each one of us was cared for by someone who was older. As we age, we can still look to those even older than us to transmit what is needed to establish that perspective in lives of purpose and belonging. On Yom Kippur, the most profound, the most deeply poignant prayer we say is Shema Kolenu. It is. We're praying with our whole hearts that God will listen to our voices, that our prayers will be heard. And I often think about the voice of the oldest amongst us, crying not just to God, Al tashlichenu le'et zikna, but rather crying to all of us who sit here, don't forget me when I get old, because my life still has meaning. Life has meaning over time. As I said, over time we carry more experiences, more knowledge, more understanding, more love, and even often humor. As long as there's breath, there's meaning. We sing on Friday nights and we say on Shabbat morning in the Psalm for Shabbat, Tzadik katamar yifrach, ki erez balvanon yiskeh shetulim beveit Adonai. Even in old age, we're going to flourish like a cedar, planted in the courtyards of our God. We shall bear fruit even in old age. I would say to that pundit on television what the rabbis taught me, that nobody can judge whose blood is redder. That's their line. Nobody can judge whose blood is redder. And by that, they mean the following. Do not put yourself in that place of judging another human being's value. You cannot decide one life over another. I believe the most vulnerable, and the vulnerable could be frontline medical workers and medical people, and the vulnerable are the teachers, and the vulnerable are the elderly, and they need to be vaccinated first. It's been said that the tablets broke when Moses was so angry coming down the mountain, seeing the people worship the golden calf. But those broken tablets were kept in the Aron as a reminder that even we, when we're old and broken, are deserving to sit in a place of holiness. Vaccinations should be given to those most at risk. It includes the elderly. When we show proper deference to the elderly, we're showing honor to God. The way we treat those on the edge of society is a measure of who we are. And those on the edge of society are the ones who are differently abled. They are the babies, the youngest. They are the poor. They are the elderly. The way we treat those who are on the edges is a manifestation of who we are. When we show proper deference to the elderly, I repeat, we're in fact showing honor to God. Every single life has meaning, from the youngest to the very oldest. And I'm really happy to be at B'nai Torah congregation, where we have been able to show our love, our concern, our respect, and our honor to the youngest amongst us and to the most elderly. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. We'll continue with the Musaf service, page 155, the Chatzi Kaddish.
ישר כוח, רבי. התגדל והתקדש שמי רבה.